This is the only board. If I just kind of coast down this way, I'm at 7 miles per hour. I'm going down this way. You see my remote? I'm not even touching it, and it just keeps going. It just keeps rolling. Holy shit! Like the rolling resistance is so good on this board. It's still just rolling, and it's almost flat, right? I've never had a skateboard that just keeps rolling down this entire way. Normally every single one of them just stops after a few meters. This one still keeps going. It's absolutely incredible.
The first time I stepped on the Parsec AERO Pro X, my heart raced with anticipation. I've ridden everything from humble cruisers to high-powered beasts, but one of my shortcomings is that I wasn't from a longboarding background, so I couldn't tell you how well the AERO Pro compares to a traditional longboard. But turns out prior longboarding experience isn't needed at all to enjoy and take full advantage of what it has to offer. The AERO Pro takes everything you know about electric skateboards and makes it better in some way. Is it perfect? There are some quirks here and there, but experience is overwhelmingly positive. So much so that it makes me feel I can ride better and push myself harder. The AERO Pro feels like strapping into the future and hitting the throttle. In this review, I'll share my experience carving up the streets on the AERO Pro X, while also noting how its sibling, the AERO Pro S, compares in the real world.
One, go. Whoa! One, go.
From the very first push of the thumb throttle, the AERO Pro X launches, and it launches pretty darn hard. The acceleration is smooth, yet satisfyingly punchy. One moment I'm rolling at a crawl, the next I'm hurtling forward with a huge grin on my face. The dual 130 kV rear motors pack serious power, around 3 kilowatts of actual peak power combined. When it comes to acceleration, I feel like it's drastically faster than mid-range boards such as the Meepo Envy and the Baymax Merlin, but it feels just ever so slightly less punchy than the Meepo Voyager or Backfire Zealot X. On a scale of 10, if the Meepo Voyager is a 10 in acceleration, then the AERO Pro feels like a 9, and the Meepo Envy would be around a 6. Needless to say, it's pretty darn powerful for something that has such a slim profile. Acceleration isn't the primary goal of this board, but for anyone who needs it, it's there, and in my opinion, it's more than I'll ever need for this type of street board. And then there's the speed. I'll admit, I worked my way up to full throttle gradually, but once I felt comfortable, I had to see what the AERO Pro could do. On a smooth, empty stretch of road, I tucked down and hit 22 miles per hour. That is the highest I'm willing to go without swapping out to stiffer bushings as things begin to get sketchy beyond that speed. But under 22 miles per hour, the board feels stable and the bushings provide decent support so as to not feel too wobbly. There is a speed limiter built in. To my understanding, it will stop the user from going over 31 miles per hour or 50 kilometers per hour. For example, in the support section of the Parsec website, swapping from 80mm to 120mm wheels and 36 teeth to 32 teeth pulleys yields a 68.75% increase in top speed. This means that without a speed limiter, an original top speed of 24 miles per hour would be increased to about 41 miles per hour. The speed limiter in this case would do the calculation and stop the board from going any faster than 31 miles per hour. But there are ways around this limiter, as you could just not update the remote regarding the change in pulley size and wheel diameter. But this is highly not recommended due to technical and safety reasons. The JKFOCESC is tuned to provide buttery smooth acceleration control. I appreciate that I can feather the trigger for gentle cruising or punch it for instant speed. The AERO Pro's ESC also lets you customize power delivery if you want, and let you fine-tune acceleration curve as well as top speed and braking power. I love how the AERO Pro's acceleration curve feels more linear, unlike other boards that try to front-load torque in the lower RPMs to give the illusion of power but tapers off quickly. The result is that the AERO Pro instills confidence at any speed. It's as tame or as wild as you want it to be. One small issue I have only exists in the S Plus mode. When the motors engage, it kicks in hard. It's very noticeable when I'm under 10 miles per hour and softens when I'm at a higher speed. I feel like the motor kicks in too hard as if it has a high minimum speed, whereas other boards use a quick speed ramp. The motors on the AERO Pro feel like a sudden lurch forward. The effect is subtle and is only noticeable on S Plus mode. It's by no means a deal breaker, but enough for me to notice. And also this is something I quickly got used to after riding it for a day.
Once the motor engaged, I can definitely feel the motors kicking. Like, I feel like the motors would kicking at a level that's higher than that would help me cruise or maintain speed. The motors were kicking at a speed that makes the board go a little bit faster. It accelerates instead of helping me coast at a certain speed.
Once I got comfortable with the power, I started carving back and forth to really feel out the board's handling. The AERO Pro did not disappoint. It carves like a dream out of the box. The board comes with precision 45 degrees reverse kingpin trucks, CNC machined from 7075 aluminum. This stock setup felt responsive, clearly geared toward carving and rebounding. On my first ride, I noticed it tracked straight and calm even when I wasn't actively balancing, a testament to those sturdy trucks and high quality bushings. At the same time, I could initiate a carve by slightly tapping my feet into the edge of the board, and the response was a deep, satisfying carve. The Aerolith trucks have a huge turning angle. If I really tried, I could almost make the 80mm wheel touch the deck in a turn. Leaning into my next carve, I could feel the board smoothly arc into the turn, with my feet about 30 inches apart on the wheelbase, which is plenty of room for a comfortable stance, but still shorter than a standard board. The combination of the small wheels and the double drop deck design kept me low to the ground, so I could really push into carves without feeling twitchy. The AERO Pro is low and stable, eager to turn, but never too eager. The tall barrel bushings give a nice progressive lean. Casual turns are easy and don't take too much input, but if you commit and really lean your weight, the board rewards you with deeper carving arcs. I found I could make surprisingly tight turns on the AERO Pro that I didn't even know was possible for someone at my skill level. The beauty is you can always swap bushings. Parsec made the trucks compatible with standard longboard bushings in addition to the tall barrels, with some slight modifications, of course, so you could throw in softer ones for even easier turning or harder ones for downhill style stiffness. Personally, I grew to love the stock setup. It hits that sweet spot where I can carve and pump hard, but also bomb a straight line without fear of speed wobbles at under 20 miles per hour. One thing that really helps the carving is the low ride height of the AERO Pro. The deck sits down low between the wheels thanks to the double drop design with only about 3.3 inches of clearance. This low center of gravity and the awesome stock wheels make the board feel glued to the road. When I'm leaning into turns, I feel stable and connected as if I'm on rails. There's no top-heavy feeling. Instead, I'm crouched low, which inspires confidence to carve harder. The low deck also means even aggressive turns feel controlled since the board isn't teetering high above the trucks. It's a very grounded ride, which is exactly what I was hoping for. The downside of a low deck can be risk of wheel bite, but Parsec engineered ample wheel cutouts. Despite running relatively loose trucks, I haven't experienced any wheel bite with the stock 80mm wheels. But as you can see here, it's getting awfully close. I imagine going up to something like Mad Wheels or Cloud Wheels might increase that risk. I'll definitely be testing out more wheels in the future. Of course, with great speed comes the need for great brakes, and the AERO Pros got them. The first time I tested the brakes at 15 miles per hour, the board smoothly but assertively slowed down. I was immediately impressed by how predictable and strong the brakes felt. There was no jerkiness, just a steady increase in braking force the further I pulled back on the remote. After a few more runs, I grew confident enough to try a full emergency stop from around 20 miles per hour. I braced and pulled full brake. The AERO Pro dug in and slowed me to a standstill surprisingly fast. It's not going to fling you off, the slowdown is well tuned, but you feel the braking power. Both the X and S share the same braking system. In fact, Parsec mentions the boards use regenerative braking on both models to help achieve their range figures. However, if you are ever on asphalt, these wheels tend to skid as you brake hard. As you can see here, there are these micro bounces as the wheels struggle to regain traction. Most roads are not like this, so I think this is more of a PU wheel behavior than the AERO Pro specific problem. The other small issue is that under hard braking, I do hear the belt skip a few times. It's not to the point where I need to do anything yet, but I'm observing this closely. If it gets worse, I might need to adjust motor positioning to slightly tighten up the belts. The inherent smoothness of the brakes made high-speed riding extremely fun, because I could bleed off speed before corners without killing the vibe or stability. The remote itself is a simple, generic remote. The connection was solid the whole ride with no disconnects, and the latency was negligible. Braking or accelerating felt essentially instantaneous. I'm told Parsec will release a new proprietary remote later in 2025, but this generic remote is doing a fine job. Overall, the control system on the AERO Pro made me feel safe and in command. One of the standout traits of the AERO Pro is its deck design. As mentioned, it's a double drop T800 carbon fiber deck. Currently, only the Meepo MLR raceboard is also using this type of carbon fiber. Visually, it looks out of this world, but functionally, it achieves a wonderfully low platform. The AERO Pro's ride height is among the lowest of any Eskate I've tried. The deck itself is stiff, as you'd expect from carbon fiber. There's virtually no flex when I bounce on it. Parsec actually claims the 1.2-inch carbon deck can withstand up to 1,746 pounds of force across the middle. While I haven't tried anything crazy like jumping on it with multiple people, it certainly feels indestructible under normal use. The stiffness does mean you feel the road a bit more. Carbon doesn't absorb vibrations like a bamboo deck would, but adding foam grip tape and adding cloud wheels might help mitigate that, and honestly, the stiffness trade-off is worth it for me. The deck shape features mild concave and wider flared edges that keep my feet nicely locked in when carving. The platform is wide at about 10 inches and long enough deck length at 34.6 inches to let me shift stance if needed, like moving my front foot forward when tucking or rear foot when accelerating. Overall, the AERO's deck and ride height work in harmony to create a feeling of balance and control. If there's one feature that truly sets the AERO Pro apart from other electric skateboards I've ridden, it's the EPIC drivetrain. EPIC stands for Efficient Precision Idler Controlled, which is a fancy way of saying this belt drive is engineered to perfection. Riding the AERO Pro, I immediately noticed how smooth and free-rolling it felt when coasting. Many belt drive boards have a bit of drag when you let off the throttle from belt tension and motor magnets, especially after hard accelerations, but the AERO Pro just glides. The belts are perfectly tensioned by the idler system so that they're tight enough not to slip under power, yet loose enough to introduce minimal resistance when coasting. The EPIC drive also has another impressive trick. You can disengage the belts in about 15 seconds by hand if you truly want zero resistance. I gave this a try out of curiosity. With no tools, I popped the belts off the motor pulleys and tucked them aside. Now the board was essentially a free-rolling longboard. I pushed around my driveway and it felt exactly like a normal push board. Super cool for those times you might want to just cruise old school or if your battery dies miles from home. Afterward, I re-engaged the belts and was back to electric mode. This convertibility speaks volumes about the thought put into the AERO's design. During most rides, I didn't need to remove the belts at all. The coasting was already excellent, but it's nice to know the option is there for very little drag. Plus, the maintenance and belt swapping is a breeze. Parsec advertises 15-second belt swaps, and it's pretty accurate. I always had to bring tools and extra belts with me just in case one snaps. Now I can finally go with less things in my backpack. Now let's talk about wheels. The AERO Pro comes stock with Parsec's own 80mm wheels, which might sound small by Eskate standards, but they're actually quite intentional. At 80mm diameter and 76 durometer, these wheels are in the realm of traditional longboard wheels, grippy and agile. I have these 83mm cloud wheels and I thought these were super small and had a bumpy ride. But on my first ride, to my pleasant surprise, the stock wheels provided a smooth and grippy ride on city pavement. They accelerate faster than larger wheels, less rotational mass and diameter, which likely contributes to the AERO Pro's zippy feel. Carving on these wheels is fantastic. The contact patch is generous enough at 56mm to offer confidence when leaning hard. And that 76A soft urethane really sticks to the asphalt. I carved over some mildly rough tarmac and the wheels held their line without sliding out, inspiring trust to push harder. On very rough pavement, an 80mm wheel will transmit more vibration than a big 100mm wheel. And I did feel some of that chatter on old asphalt, but thanks to the carbon deck's rigidity and the fact that the AERO sits low, it never felt sketchy. I just felt the texture more. If your roads are mostly decent, 80mm is a blast. And if you do crave a bigger wheel for comfort, the AERO Pro has you covered. It's compatible with wheels up to 120mm using the same pulleys. But just beware that I can almost touch the deck with the 80mm while turning on stock bushings any bigger than 90mm, you might start catch wheel bites on really hard carves. With all this fun, you're probably wondering about the range. How far can these boards go, and what's the difference between the X and S? As someone who hates range anxiety, I naturally gravitated to the AERO Pro X, which sports the larger battery pack. The X carries a 444 Wh Molicel P45B battery, whereas the S has a 222 Wh pack. That's the 14S 1P version. In terms of claimed range, we're talking about 32 miles on a full charge for the X versus roughly 14 miles for the S, tested with a 165-pound rider going at a moderate pace. Those figures caught my eye initially, and in my real-world rides they held up well. On my first long outing with the AERO Pro X, I managed just shy of 20 miles before the battery indicator hit the last blinking bar, and that was with a mix of fast sections and leisurely cruising. I was super impressed. It's a surreal feeling to ride that far on an electric skateboard with only 444 Wh. The X roughly doubles the range of the S in practice and slightly heavier. This difference is the core reason you choose one over the other. I personally love the freedom the X gives. I can ride all day, take detours, and not constantly worry about conserving battery. On the flip side, the S's range is still quite decent for everyday shorter commutes or campus cruising, and it has the benefit of being lighter. Speaking of weight, the battery is what contributes to the X being heavier. The AERO Pro S weighs in at about 15.5 pounds, which is extremely light for an e-skate, while the X is about 18.3 pounds. That 3-pound difference is noticeable when you pick the boards up, and the X feels a bit more dense but still very portable, but enters the weight range of other entry-level electric skateboards. Recharging the boards is faster than I expected, which is great when you do eventually need to juice up. Parsec includes a 165 watt charger by default. Using this, you can charge the AERO Pro S from empty to 100% in about 1.5 hours, and the AERO Pro X took about 3 hours for a full charge. 2.8 amps isn't exactly a fast charger. It's got fast charging time more or less because the battery size is relatively small. But what's even crazier is the optional 600 watt fast charger that Parsec offers. It's really a game changer. With the fast charger, the S went from 0 to full in roughly 30 minutes and the X in about 55 minutes. That's basically a lunch break or a short rest, and you're back to full battery. Remember, for lithium batteries, the last 20% take just as long to charge as the first 80%, so you could top off the S and to 80% in as little as 15 minutes and 27 minutes respectively. It's almost comical how little downtime you have with the fast charger. Of course, repeatedly fast charging can generate more heat, but the battery in the AERO Pro is a high-quality Molicel P45B pack designed for high output and longevity. In fact, Parsec notes that these cells are rated for twice the cycle life of typical e-board batteries. So not only do they deliver great range and performance, they should also last a long time without significant capacity loss, meaning years of electrified fun. While the battery pack is not hot swappable, in the event where you do need to change the battery, it is totally doable as well. Let's take a moment to appreciate the design of the AERO Pro, because this board turns heads everywhere I ride. Parsec clearly went for a futuristic look, and they nailed it. The first time I pulled the AERO Pro X out of the box, my son's eyes went wide and he said, "Is that for me? Is that a transformer?" The AERO Pro embraces its high-tech nature, sporting a sleek exposed carbon fiber deck and aggressive lines that make it look like an e-skateboard from the future. It's all sharp aesthetics and modern design language. Personally, I love it. The battery is integrated into the deck, and the whole underside is a smooth carbon surface with just a few tasteful logo markings. The logo is slightly lopsided though. The top of the deck is mostly black grip with a clean Parsec logo and some contour lines that accentuate the shape. Even the edges of the deck have this cool angular cut that evokes aerospace design. If you enjoy a bit of spotlight, the AERO Pro delivers. It looks fast standing still, like a concept vehicle. Importantly, the build quality matches the looks. Everything on the AERO Pro feels premium and well engineered. The carbon deck, as mentioned, is super strong and shows zero flex or weakness. The trucks are gorgeous CNC aluminum pieces with steel axles. Not only do they perform well, but up close you can see the precise machining and anodized finish. My only concern is that there's no bumper cover to protect the smooth surfaces of the CNC aluminum parts. Whenever I need to set the board on its nose, I quietly whisper an apology to my AERO Pro for scratching it up. I'm sure a month from now, I probably won't even care anymore, but I do hope Parsec offers front and rear guards so I can start throwing money at them. The charging port is located on the top of the deck near the front truck, hidden under a little rubber cap. This means I don't have to flip the board over or fumble underneath to plug it in. I can charge it easily while it's standing upright or resting on its wheels. It's one of those minor conveniences that you don't appreciate until you have it, and now I think all e-boards should do the same. I am however concerned about water ingress from the top charge port. I never ride in the rain or when it's wet outside, but there are people who will test those limits and treat the board like a submarine. I actually did repair support for an Eskate company for a while, and half of everything that was broken was due to water ingress from the top charging port. Again, this won't be a problem for me as I never ride when it's raining or about to rain. But if you don't completely seal the charging port every time, you might have a bad day in the future. The Epic drivetrain components are all metal and built to tight tolerances. I've had no issues with alignment or loosening, and the belts run true and quiet. The motors are neatly integrated at the back, and the wiring is almost all hidden inside the deck, giving a very clean look. With the exception of this part where the wires are coming out of the deck. This part looks very messy and hastily done. Daniel did post in a message that it's made to look better on future batches. I also have small thin wires coming out of this thing, and I kinda wish they bundled all the wires together. I am slightly concerned about the durability of these exposed tiny wires. A signature design element of the AERO Pro is the handle integrated into the back of the deck. When I want to carry the board, I can step on the kicktail and the front handle pops right up with a right amount of force, letting me grab it and go. It's brilliant. I was slightly concerned at first that this thing is going to fly up and hit me in the face like one of those cartoons, but it was so well designed that the board actually slows down before becoming completely vertical. Very well thought out. In practice, I just kick the nose up and wheel it by my side using the handle, or pick the whole board up by the handle like a briefcase, or carrying it by my side like a document folder. The light weight of the board really shines here, carrying 15 to 18 pounds depending on which board you have, with a nice handle is a non-issue. I've strolled into shops with the AERO Pro X in one hand and a coffee in the other. Try that with a 40-pound all-terrain board. This portability factor makes the AERO Pro a terrific daily driver for commuting. Both the X and S share the same form factor and handle design, so both are equally convenient to carry, with the S being even lighter of course and is the lightest in its class. After spending a week with the AERO Pro X, I can confidently say these boards delivered some of the most fun I've ever had on a skateboard. Every ride has felt like an adventure, from the heart-pounding acceleration and top-end speed to the smooth carving turns to the confidence-inspiring brakes, all wrapped in a package that genuinely merges the best of longboarding and electric power. So, AERO Pro X or S. The good news is you can't go wrong. Both models share the same DNA and ride characteristics, so it really comes down to your needs. If you're like me and crave long rides and maximum range, the AERO Pro X is an absolute beast. I love the freedom it gives me. I can charge it up and spend half a day exploring, carving up neighborhoods and blasting up hills, all without a second thought about the battery, and the fact that it charges to full in under an hour with a fast charger blows my mind. On the other hand, the AERO Pro S is no slouch. It's incredibly light and easy to handle, and still packs plenty of range for shorter commutes or weekend fun. If you plan to carry your board around campus, take it on transit regularly, or simply don't need marathon range, the S is the perfect fit. It's a bit more budget friendly too, but you still get all the same performance punch and features as the X, just with half the battery. In conclusion, the Parsec AERO Pro X and S are both winners in my book. If you get a chance to ride one, do it. you'll understand why I'm raving. And if you're in the market for an electric skateboard that puts fun and ride feel first while still delivering on specs, the AERO Pro should be at the top of your list. It's rare that a board comes along and genuinely advances the e-skate game, but this is one of them. As I carve the final turn toward home, I'm already grinning, thinking about tomorrow's ride. With the AERO Pro under my feet, every day feels like a day in the future, and the future feels fantastic.